Hello everyone and welcome to the Outer Rim Cantina. My name's Alan and today I'm here to talk about, a little bit about The Mandalorian, a little bit about the Book of Boba Fett, and a lot about how incredibly stupid Jon Favreau is. So, we've all seen the newest trailer for The Mandalorian Season 3. It's coming out March 1st. That's in less than 2 weeks now. Everybody is super excited for it. I mean, I'm super excited for it, and it's probably going to be great from all the stuff we've seen in the trailers, but of all the great things we've seen in the trailers, there is one thing in particular that is a glaring kind of blemish, or it's the elephant in the room when it comes to The Mandalorian Season 3, which is the fact that Din and Grogu are back together at the beginning of the season for seemingly no reason whatsoever, unless you've watched the Book of Boba Fett, which for most people, the average viewer, so nobody watching this video, you, me, everybody else, we've all seen the Book of Boba Fett. But the vast majority of people that watch The Mandalorian are not going to watch the Book of Boba Fett. They have not seen the Book of Boba Fett. They have no interest in watching the Book of Boba Fett. Yet, it's in the Book of Boba Fett, an entirely separate show in which we see the two main characters of The Mandalorian have their massive, big, individual, life-changing journeys and make and return together to go and do stuff back in season 3 of the main show. Why? Why is that a thing? Why is that what they decided to do? Because every average person that saw the Mandalorian Season 3 trailer during the Super Bowl said, wait, Din and Grogu are back together? And then the other people that are with them, the big Star Wars fans who probably told them to watch The Mandalorian in the first place because it's really good, it's just a genuinely good show, they'll turn to their Star Wars geek friends and they'll be like, they're back together? What happened? And then it's all of us that will have to turn to them and say, oh yeah, they got back together in a different show. Which is dumb. And anybody with a functioning brain would see that that is dumb. It is so supremely stupid that I don't understand the thought process going through Jon Favreau's mind when he decided that that was the route they were going to take with these characters. Because at the end of Season 2, it's this big emotional moment where we see Grogu separated from Din, both of these characters going their separate ways to go on their own individual journeys to grow their characters. At least that's what you expect when you watch the final scene of The Mandalorian Season 2. You expect these characters to go on their own journeys, to grow, and then to, yes, eventually come back together in the culmination of the plot of Season 3. Not in 2 episodes of an entirely different show. It's so stupid. These characters go off and do their own thing, and then all of a sudden they're just back together for seemingly no reason. It makes no sense. And the more that Jon Favreau talks about this, it makes even less sense. Because what brought this on, and what brought a bunch of people complaining about this more than they otherwise would have, is that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni both recently did an interview with Empire Magazine, where Jon was asked, what was the thought process behind having Din and Grogu reunite in the Book of Boba Fett versus have them doing it in The Mandalorian Season 3. And Jon's response was basically that, well, yeah, I don't know, we didn't want to do that. What? You didn't want to what? You didn't want to have these characters actually grow individually, actually do their own thing, actually exist outside of one another before coming back together? That's what you didn't want to do? You didn't want to give these characters any sort of growth, any sort of individual development. You just wanted to slap them back together because you can't be bothered to continue a story beat that you yourself came up with. And it's the dumbest response that he could possibly give to the dumbest thing he could have possibly done in his own show. At the end of season 2, everyone expected that season 3 would involve Din going off to do his own thing with Bo-Katan, with the Mandalorians, and then we'd get little glimpses of Grogu off doing his own thing with Luke Skywalker, doing his Jedi training, learning about the Force, maybe even rebuilding the Jedi Order a little bit. And then those two story arcs would come together, and in the penultimate episode, probably of season 3, we would see them reuniting, and not only would it be satisfying for the viewer, because as the viewer, as the audience, we would feel like this reunion is earned. We've seen what both of these characters do when they're separated from one another. We understand why they need one another, and so it'll feel like that reunion is earned. But it'll also feel like it's earned for the characters themselves, because both of the characters would experience their own individual growth, which would serve to strengthen their relationship to one another. How in the world was that not what they did? The answer was right in front of their face, right in front of Jon's face specifically, when they came up with this whole Din giving Grogu to Luke plotline that would end season 2 in a cliffhanger and set up for the main plot of season 3. But no, instead we get them doing their own thing for 2 episodes of a completely different show, and then just moving on like nothing happened. And in this interview, Jon tried to explain it away like, oh, well, yeah, lots of time has actually passed in the Book of Boba Fett. They've actually been apart for a while, for an indiscriminate amount of time, because he didn't actually give a timetable. He just said that the Book of Boba Fett offered time to pass, which means nothing. How much time, Jon? Because the Book of Boba Fett, it feels like Din and Grogu were apart for like a holiday weekend, or like Grogu went to a sleepaway camp for 5 days with Luke Skywalker, and then his dad came and picked him up and they just went on about their business like nothing ever happened. That's what it feels like. It doesn't feel like any time has passed, because that's never actually expressed to the audience. We don't get to see that. There's not even an acknowledgement of the amount of time that has passed since the end of season 2. So it literally just feels like a long weekend. Like, they didn't even say, oh, it's been 6 months or something after Din goes and gets Grogu, and it's like, oh, I'm so happy to see you. It's been blah, 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 X amount of time. We didn't even get that. Even the most basic explainer for how much time has actually passed. It's just, yeah, it's been like a couple days, and they're back together again like nothing ever happened, and then all the emotional weight of the end of season 2 is taken away. Like, how does it make sense? And, like, I understand Disney and Lucasfilm wanting to keep the character of Grogu around, if not for the simple fact of the merchandise sales alone, the millions upon millions of dollars they have made in merchandising Grogu, the Baby Yoda character. Like, even people who aren't fans of Star Wars have, like, at least one piece of Baby Yoda merch in their house at this point, right? Baby Yoda is a household thing. I completely get them wanting to keep that character around just to sell merchandise. It makes sense. I mean, that's why the character of Boba Fett was originally created. But if you wanted to keep this character around, and for whatever reason they didn't want to go with their reunion plotline for season 3 and their individual growths, then okay, you keep them separate, but you keep Grogu around by having a spin-off show of him and Luke going around doing Jedi stuff, and just make it a new Jedi Order spin-off series where they go and do a lot of cool Force stuff, while then you have the Mandalorian where Din and Bo-Katan are going around doing a bunch of cool Mandalorian stuff. And then, after one or two seasons of that, then you have these characters come back together in this big crossover event that they're really hyping up between The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and Ahsoka, and, all these other different series that they're making. Then you can have them come back together, and then it would feel like their reunion is earned even more because we've gotten so much time to explore these characters on their own without either of them being tied down to one another. But no, they didn't do that either. They did the absolute laziest thing they could possibly do. The laziest, dumbest thing they could possibly do, which is have them reunite after virtually no time in a completely different show to confuse the casual audience who made The Mandalorian so popular in the first place. I literally cannot wrap my brain around how this idea was ever approved by anybody in charge. Like, I get that they kind of let Jon go off and do his own thing with The Mandalorian. Like, he already had the entire first season written when he pitched the idea to Kathleen Kennedy. But, so I get it. They let him do his own thing. But somebody, somewhere along the way, should have seen this idea and been like, no, Jon, this is dumb. Why are you doing it this way when these other ways are so much better in the long run, not only for the character development, but for merchandising these properties and these characters, and even creating new content on top of that you can then also merchandise. I just don't get what the thought process was, and evidently neither does Jon Favreau, because the answer that he gave to this question was such a non-answer that it just adds more layers of stupidity to the whole thing. But, regardless, we'll have to see how they handle it with the premiere of Season 3. I mean, are they just gonna, have a little recap montage of the 2 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett that didn't include Boba Fett at all and were literally just the pilot for The Mandalorian Season 3? Is that what they're gonna do? They're just gonna have a big highlight reel and then move on with the main Mandalorian story? I don't know. They've created this problem for themselves that didn't need to be created in the first place and was so easily avoidable that it's just blowing my mind how supremely stupid everybody working on this project has been with this very important and crucial thing when you're dealing with the main characters of this franchise. It's just, God, I don't know, man. It's just so dumb. But that's where my rant is going to end for now. As always, I would love to know what you think of the whole Mandalorian Grogu reunion Book of Boba Fett thing down in the comments. How do you think they're going to handle it with the premiere of The Mandalorian Season 3? But for now, that's all the time I've got for today. So, as always, if you want even more daily Outer Rim Cantina content, you can follow me on Twitter at Outer Rim Can and Instagram at Outer Rim Cantina. The link to all of my social medias is down in the description of the video, and I hope to see you back here in the cantina next time for another Star Wars video. Until then, may the Force be with you.